Hi, welcome to Genuine Coder YouTube channel. This is the first video of a 6-video tutorial series where we will develop a Java server application and an Android app that works together. So in the first 3 chapters of this tutorial series, we will create a Java server application using Spring Boot and MySQL database. And in the last 3 chapters, we will develop an Android application that works with this server. Currently, I have the server running in my machine, and the sample application I have already installed it on my phone. So I will show you a demo here of what we are going to develop. So let me open the application in my phone, and here you can see that we have a list of employees shown, and these employees are actually loaded in real time from the server that is running on my PC. So all these data are loaded in real time through REST API, and if I want to add a new employee to this list, I can click on the plus button, and here I can fill out the form. So I will just fill something like genuine coder branch CSC, then location India. So I will give it like that and save employee, and you can see that the save is successful. And if I scroll down, you can see that the entry is added, genuine coder India is available. So we will be developing this application that works in a client-server fashion. So in this tutorial series, you will learn about Spring Boot framework and integration of Spring Boot to MySQL. And also we will see how to create REST APIs, and we will see how an Android app can be developed so that it works with the server. So it will load the data from the server, it will save the data to the server, so everything will be based on the server. The advantage of developing client-server application is that if you install the app on another phone, then the whole data will be available for that device as well, because all the data is stored in the server and it is not local to the phone. So that all the data is available in all the client application if you want to. So this is the very first chapter of the tutorial series, and in this chapter we will see how to create a new Spring Boot project, and we will also see how to connect our Spring Boot application into a MySQL database. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so now let us start our coding. So the first thing that we are going to do is to create a new Spring Boot project. So when talking about creating new Spring Boot project, there are multiple ways we can do that. For example, just as usual, we can create a new Gradle project in our favorite IDE and add the Spring Boot as a dependency. Or else we can also create a Maven project and then add the Spring Boot as a dependency into that project. But out of the all possible ways, the easiest way to create a new Spring Boot project from scratch is to use a web application called Spring Initializr. So we'll be using Spring Initializr for creating new Spring Boot project in our tutorial. So in order to get the web application, you can search in Google for Spring Initializr, or you can go to start.spring.io directly. So when you search for that, the first answer is start.spring.io, and yes, of course, this is given by the spring.io, the original, it is an official application for creating the project. So when we go into the start.spring.io page, you can see that there are a couple of options we can use. So the first option is to choose the project type. So we can create a Maven project, or we can use a Gradle project. So we will be using Gradle project for this tutorial. And regarding the language, of course, we'll be using Java. So if you want to use another language like Kotlin or Groovy, there is option for that. Also, if your preferred build system is Maven, of course, you can go with the Maven project. And then we have the option to choose the Spring Boot version. So here are the couple of options available right now as the Spring Boot versions while making this tutorial video. As of now, the stable version is 2.6.4. That is why it is chosen as the default one. The latest stable version across these versions is 2.6.4 right now, so we will stick with that. Then regarding the project metadata, it is the usual metadata that we give, like a group, artifact, and name for the project. And here I'll be giving com genuine coder. And then in the artifact section, let us use the project name. Let's say it is a Spring Server. So we are naming it as Spring Server. And this is like a Spring Client Server Application Tutorial. So this is our description for the project, and here we can specify the package name. So the a package name is required because when we are creating this project, there will be a class, a main class that will be added automatically. So that class will be inside this specified package name. So as per the Java convention, let us not use capital names for the package name. Let us just use com genuine coder Spring Server, all in small case. Then regarding the packaging, jar or var packaging can be created. Var is usually for like deploying into a web server. Currently for this project, since it is a demo project, we'll be sticking with the jar. Then regarding the Java version, we have three options, 3 LTS version right now. We will stick with the latest Java version. If you have other preferences, of course you can choose that. Then comes the important part, dependencies. So the main advantage of using Spring Initializer is that you can easily search and add dependencies right from here. So in this project, we will be needing two main Spring Boot dependencies. The first one is Spring Web, because we will be running our application as a server, Spring Boot server. So we need to have Tomcat, etc., like the server's dependencies, and we need to run our application so that an HTTP port, like a HTTP server will be running at a specified port. So we need Spring Web as the dependency. And the other thing we need is JPA. So JPA is for our SQL support, like our database support, because we will be connecting our application to a database, to an SQL database, so that we can store data and do all those data manipulation. So we need these two dependencies. So we have said here, like we have configured the dependency, we have specified the Spring Boot, etc. Now, in order to generate this project, we simply click on the generate button and it will generate a new project for us. So it is generating, and once it is done, it will automatically download the project, and then we can simply extract it and open it in our favorite IDE. So as you can see, now our Spring Server is ready. Let me open my Explorer and copy it. So I have already created a demo there. So we have this downloader Spring Server. Let me extract it here, and let me just let me copy it there and simply extract it. So save extract here. Now if you go into the project, you can see that all the important files like the build.gradle and the main class, like com genuine coder Spring Server main class, Spring Server application.java is the default class they're generating. So everything is set. Now our project is ready. Now let us open this project in our IntelliJ IDE, or if you are using NetBeans or Eclipse or anything that you are familiar with, you can do that. So let me open IntelliJ IDE. Okay, now I have it. Let me choose the open option, and here let me go into the path here. Mine is located in this path, so I will use that. And here if I go into the extractor path tutorials projects, you can see that it is already detected as a like valid project. That is why the special icon is there. So we can just simply open it. And now when we open this project, Spring Boot will be IntelliJ will be indexing the Spring Boot project. It will take a little bit of time for the Gradle to be configured and the dependencies be downloaded. While it is doing that in the background, let us just check the project files. Here we have our build.gradle file, and here you can see that all the important plugins are applied. The dependencies that we needed, like Spring Data JPA and Spring Data Web, is added, and also it created the main class Spring Server application with the required parameters and all. So basically our project is ready. our project is ready to be worked on. So let us just wait until all the background tasks are completed, and that's it. Now everything is completed and our project is ready. So let us start our actual coding. So in order to run this program, what you have to do is to go to the Gradle task, application, and boot run task. So this boot run is actually a Gradle task that is used for running the Spring Boot application, and it comes from the plugin Spring Framework.boot. So we can use this one, boot run, right click on it and choose the run option, and it will try to start our application. Our application right now will not start because we need to do some more configuration. So let us see what is the error here is, and it says that failed to configure a data source URL attribute is not specified. So basically what the problem here is that we have included the Spring Data JPA dependency into our project, which is used for connecting our application into a database, but we haven't specified which database or what is the username and password for the database, what is the port at which the database is running, whether it is a MySQL or a MariaDB or a Postgres, I mean what kind of database it is that. So those kind of things we need to specify. So let us do that next, and then this error will go away, and then we can start our application properly. So in order to configure our database into the application, we need to go into the resources section and application.properties. So the good thing about Spring Boot is that this single file application.properties can do a lot of configuration. Like currently we are going to include the configuration for the database in this file, but Spring has a lot of dependencies, like hundreds of dependencies across like different things. So if you want to do configurations for that, then they can also be easily added into this properties file. So that is one of the major advantages of Spring Boot, like it makes developers' life easier. Okay, so here we need to configure some parameters regarding our database. So for this tutorial, we'll be using MySQL database. I have installed MySQL database. Let me open MySQL Workbench here. So in my system, I already have MySQL Workbench installed. If you don't have a MySQL database installed, then please refer in this blog. There will be a card up here in this video, and you can click on that and actually watch my tutorial on installing MySQL in your application if you haven't already. It is a very simple process. You might not want the tutorial. You can just go ahead and install it. If you haven't already, then do that. Otherwise, we can just continue. So here in my configuration, I am running MySQL 8.0.28, and I am running it in localhost 3306. Now what we want to do is we want to connect our application into the MySQL server so that we can do all the data manipulation, like we can store and retrieve data. For that, we actually need to add 5 configurations here in this application.properties. So I have a template made with all the configuration required. So I will just use that and explain all the lines one by one, all the configurations one by one. So these are the configurations that we want to give for the database setup. So let us go through one by one. The first thing that we need to configure is the data source URL. So the data source URL specifies in which system at which port the database is running, and what is the database name that we want to use for this application. In my case, as you have seen a little bit before, I have configured it. I mean, the MySQL is running in my own system and the port is 3306. So I should use localhost 3306 in the data source URL. So here I will just add the host, localhost, and in the port section it is 3306. Then I need to add one more thing here, and that is the database name. So for this project I will use Spring Server DB as the database name, MySQL database name. So This data source URL is going to be JDBC, MySQL, localhost 3306, and the database name here. Then the next thing that we want to specify here is the dialect. So this is very interesting thing. So the reason why we want to specify a dialect here is because the Spring Boot actually supports a lot of different kinds of databases and from different vendors. For example, when we are talking about SQL, there are different implementations of SQL, like MySQL is there. There is PostgreSQL, there is Microsoft SQL Server, uh, and there is MariaDB, etc. So different implementation of the same thing. So and they have variation in their queries and commands, and minor variations are there. So here specifying the proper dialects make sure that our application can properly communicate with the with the database we have installed. And here in our case we have installed MySQL version 8. So here we should give org hibernate dialect MySQL 8 dialect. So actually it will like show MySQL 8 dialect. I mean, if you start typing on org hibernate dialect, then it will provide like a different dialects here. So you can see that like cache 71 dialect, DB2 Derby, Apache Derby dialect, InnoDB dialect. A lot of dialect is there. In our case, we are using the latest MySQL version, so we'll be using MySQL 8 dialect here. Then the next two fields are very like obvious. It is the database username and database password. So don't use root and root as the username and password in your production system. In my system, this is just for tutorial purposes. So that is why I gave the weak username and password. So basically you have to specify your username and password here. So that we have given, and there is an option. The last option is like Spring JPA Hibernate DDL Auto, and we have given it as update. So the this we have to give it as update because this handles how the schema is handled. Let me explain that in simple terms. In our application, we will be creating data models or data classes which will be converted into SQL tables. Like we will create a class with the int id and a string name, which will be converted into SQL tables automatically by the Spring JPA. So over time, we will be making changes to the schema. So let me take a diagram here. So let's say we have an employee class, and we have an integer ID field and a string name field. Initially, let us forget about the second case. Then we ran our program and added some things, etc. So the schema is created. So a table will be SQL table will be created for this with two columns, ID and name. Later we decided that yeah, we need more fields in the employee class. Then we added the place and branch. In that case, what should happen? So there are multiple ways, like SQL can drop this, like delete this table and create a new table like that, but we have chosen the approach called update. So what happens is like it will try to update the database schema when we change the class schema. So for our purpose, this is the most suited one right now. So let us keep it as update. Okay, now let us try running our application again. Spring Server boot run, and there is a new error. So it will be due to MySQL driver missing. Now the error is that our application do not have the MySQL driver, and this error says that failed to load driver class com MySQL CJ JDBC driver is missing. So that is what we have to do next. So currently we have added the Spring Boot JPA plugin, Spring Boot web plugin, and actually the JPA plugin, as we discussed before, is capable of supporting a wide variety of databases, from SQL, different implementation of SQLs, to different kind of databases. So it is not possible to include the drivers of all these databases here. So we need to include the MySQL driver as another dependency. In order to do that, let us go ahead to Google and search for MySQL connector. And when we search that, we will get a couple of results. We need a Maven MVN repository. We need to add it as a Gradle dependency. So we will search for MySQL connector like this, and you can see that the latest version is 8.0.28. So we will just copy it from the Gradle section. This is for adding it as a Gradle dependency. If you have Maven, you can use this. So here we will copy this and paste it here. Then we will just run a Gradle build, and let us wait for the Gradle build to finish. And now when we run the program, there will be one more error for database not existing there. Yeah, okay, now that problem is gone. There is one more new error, and it says that unknown database Spring Server DB. So right now the issue is that when the program is trying to connect into the MySQL database, it is not able to find the database called Spring Server DB because it is not yet created. Because if you go into the MySQL workbench and look for the databases, there is no database called Spring Server DB. So the program is failing. In order to fix that, there is an easy option. Like let me copy that also. So basically, in this URL itself, you can specify, like, if the database doesn't exist already in the database in the MySQL server, create it automatically. So we can tell that to the server, to the Spring Boot. So here we are specifying, like, yeah, connect to this database, and if the database does not exist, create it, and we set it to true. Now let us run the program again, and you can see that everything is correct, everything is going well, and the application started normally, and there is a web server running at 8080 port because we have included the Spring Web dependency. Also, that database connection is right now working, and because it didn't throw any errors. And if we go into the MySQL workbench right now and refresh it, you can see that MySQL Server DB is now added. A database is automatically created there. Now, one last thing that is that if you want to configure a different port for this Tomcat server, Spring Boot server, you can do that using an option called server.port. So if I want to run this application in a different port of my system, let me show you right now. If I go into the localhost 8080, you can see that our server is running in the 8080 port. This is an error page because we haven't handled any endpoints so far that we will be doing in the next chapters. So right now the server is running, nothing is configured for the web, but it is running in the 8080 port. If you want to choose another port, like maybe 9000 or 9500, then you can just give that here. So if I give server.port 9000 here, then run the application again, then it will use the port 9000 as the HTTP server. It won't use 8080 because if I refresh here, see, it is not connecting, like there is nothing running in that port. And you can see that I am getting unable to connect error. But if I set it to 9000, then you can see that it is getting correct. I mean, the server is running, nothing is configured, but that is fine. We will do that in the next steps. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's about this chapter. We have created our new Spring Boot project, connected into the MySQL server, database server, and also configure the port for our server. So I'll see you on the next one. Bye.